So it looks like Riot's buffing AD carry items. Well, time to permaban Yasuo. Hello Summoners and welcome to another ProGuides video. Today we'll be discussing the upcoming ADC changes headed to the testing servers with the aim of bringing a bit more agency into the marksman role. Before we get into it, our question of the day is, which sweeping change to a role did you like best? Let us know your answers in the comments, and without further delay, let's get into it. Lately, Riot's been talking about how they want to address a few of the problems with the current state of League's balance, particularly the disparity in agency between bot lane carries and mid laners. Whereas mid lane is currently too powerful, the bot lane carries are finding themselves in a disproportionately weak spot for how important their role is in the success of a team. This current weakness can be looked at as the result of a few things, but it all boils down to the same thing. ADCs are too easy to kill early on and are too easily oppressed by enemy team play, or even just by the skill gap between their supports. It's not uncommon to watch a Leona 1v1 in ADC all the way up to the 25-minute mark, and if the Leona is ahead enough, it doesn't even stop there. On the other side of things, according to Riot's analysis, the outcome of a game doesn't seem to be super dependent on which ADC player is better. So the skill expression just isn't there right now, and in an ideal world, every role should be able to outshine their opponents in a meaningful way. So, in the interest of helping ADCs actually play the game without also buffing supports, Riot is taking a more item and stat-based approach rather than returning some of the shared experience they took away this season. The changes are as follows. Zeal gets a buff in the form of an additional 3% attack speed, and the 4 Zeal items, RFC, PD, Shiv, and Hurricane, will get an additional 5% attack speed once they're fully built. Riot will also be giving ADCs a buff to their durability through an extra 30 base health at level 1 and 5 more health per level than they currently receive. The goal is that having this extra vitality early on should help them weather a little bit more abuse from enemy bot laners and make them a touch more resilient in the later stages of the game as well. Don't misunderstand though, when I say a little bit, I really do mean a very little bit. This is far from stopping ADCs from going poof in team fights, but it's at least an okay start. And Mark said they would at least be continuing to test and revisit the changes before they went live, so there's still time to whip up something a bit more substantial. As for the item changes, giving stats to Zeal items is one way Riot has given or taken power from ADCs in the past, but unless rushing a Zeal item becomes the new standard for ADCs, I don't think an earlier 3% attack speed boost justifies that. ADCs won't really be feeling this buff until laning phase ends, which is where most of their issues are right now anyway. The champion this does help is Yasuo, and maybe certain crit Yi builds that like to get early Zeals, so look forward to dealing with that in your games, I guess. Shying away from returning shared experience to bot lane is a fine notion, but in practice, it's going to create a much longer to-do list before the bot lane feels like it's in a good spot. They're giving ADCs a piddly amount of health per level, but even obtaining that piddly health takes a pretty long while, and the Zeal buffs are nice, but that's not exactly an optimal early buy either. Back in the train wreck of patch 8.11, Riot took away early ADC damage in favor of redistributing that power more towards the late game in the form of attack damage growth because they felt ADCs were too powerful early. They've since moderately, loosely, sorta-ish rectified most of that whole train wreck, but the idea of it is what's important. ADCs had too much agency, so they nerfed the early game. 2 years later though, if they want to keep this EXP decrease, they're going to have to essentially do the exact opposite. If Riot wants bot lane carries to have more agency, they need to front load some of their damage back into their kits so they can better fend for themselves, or some better defensive stats so that they don't get abused quite so easily, or at least some move speed so they can run for their miserable lives. The current stat line for ADCs are unacceptable when the standard is for them to end up 2 levels behind solo laners. There needs to be compromise somewhere. Giving back some of the shared experience definitely isn't the power move, but they either need to give back some of it, give ADCs more base stats, or they need to put more power into items that ADCs actually buy early on. These changes are an okay start, but they've got a ways to go before they're in position to truly fix the overarching problem. I'm sure we'll hear more in the coming weeks as news develops, but hopefully Riot's approach to nerfing mid lane is a bit more firm than these attempts to buff bot lane. In the meantime, fingers crossed, and we'll keep you guys updated as we hear more news. Thank you again for watching, guys. That's all for now. Once again, please let us know in the comments which big set of class changes Riot made that you actually enjoyed so we can hit you with the hot, fresh heart react. And stay safe out there, everyone. Have a good one, and wash your hands.